Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole. Ole, 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 ole. Ole, ole.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first installment of the fourth period, the All Hockey Talk, a part of the Diamond Sports Network, the Four Corners of Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Gorse, here with my special guest and co-host, Brett Wilner. Brett, how you doing today?
Good, how are you? Good to be on the show.
Oh, it's great to get started. Great to have the first episode.
Absolutely.
A little late, but, we're still only halfway through the season, so we got a lot of hockey to talk about right now. We got a lot of hockey in the future to talk about as well. Well, folks, I'm not sure if you've really been paying attention much to the NHL news recently, but big news just happened about 3-4 minutes ago. The all-star rosters for each division have been released, and I have to say, there are definitely some surprises on these lists.
Definitely, guys I didn't expect on this list, and a couple guys got snubbed for sure.
Oh, for sure. So let's start with the Atlantic Division. This division includes Buffalo, Florida, Tampa Bay, and pretty much all the Canadian teams in the Eastern Conference. So some names that I think you knew were going to be on there: Nikita Kucherov, Brad Marchand, Austin Matthews, Steven Stamkos. Mike Green, I think, was maybe a little bit of a surprise, but I think that he deserved it with his play in Detroit so far. And then Carey Price, Andrei Vasilevsky, of course, from Tampa Bay. Of course, he has to make it. He's pretty much carried Tampa Bay with Kucherov so far. I think I really don't see any snubs or surprises much from the Atlantic Division.
No, not at all. I think those guys are all well deserving to be in this All-Star game, and they've all played well, and they've really helped their team contribute.
Now, the Metropolitan Division, this is considered, I think, probably now, folks, we are both Penguin fans, so we do have a little bias towards the Penguins, but we will try our best to kind of look past that and try to compare all the teams equally in the right sense of mind. But I do have to say, personally, I think this is the toughest division in all of hockey.
So far, I think it's the best league.
But I do think that there were some surprises and some snubs in this division, including from the Penguins. I mean, you look at this, Josh Bailey from the Islanders, he made it. I think this was the biggest surprise. Sidney Crosby made it. Yeah. This was a surprise because I didn't think he had that great of a first half.
I don't think he did either. I thought Phil Kessel should have made it over him, but
for sure.
Yeah.
And that's a surprise.
Letang too. That's very surprising.
Letang did not have a very good first half either. Of course, he's coming back from neck surgery during the last year's postseason, but still, I don't think Crosby really deserved it. He did have the last two games he did play against the Islanders and Bruins. He did have a good game. He did have two good games. He had 7 points in those two games, but I don't think he did really enough to make the All-Star game at all. I think, if anything, between the two-headed monster, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin deserved to be over Crosby. But I think out of anyone, the Penguins, Phil Kessel definitely deserved to be.
He was carrying the load when they were struggling. So.
Oh, for sure. He was their only offensive production throughout the first half, practically.
Yeah, and it's the same game every time with Phil Kessel, too, which is very impressive.
Oh, for sure. But then you look at the rest. Alex Ovechkin, he made it. Of course, he's had a very good first half. Mm-hmm. He's had a very good first half. He seems to be rebounding from last year pretty well. He didn't do so well last year. Of course, he had to share a lot of the roles with some of their other players, and because they didn't lose as many key pieces as people thought they would during the offseason, but I think that he's really fitting nicely into the new role. Yeah. He's definitely shot the puck more this year compared to last year, which is more of his game. And he's definitely put up the numbers this first half to be able to say that he deserves a chance in the All-Star game. Mm-hmm. Looking at Seth Jones from the Columbus Blue Jackets, he makes it. And then Braden Holtby, Henrik Lundqvist, Washington, New York for the goalies. I think those two were definitely two of the better ones.
Well deserved.
Honestly, I might have put Corey Schneider ahead of Lundqvist maybe. He's had a great first half. The Devils, probably one of the more surprising teams in the NHL. I wouldn't say the most surprising.
One of them, though,
we'll get to that later, but definitely one of the more surprising teams, and he's been a big part of that.
Yes.
So now we get to the Central Division. Patrick Kane, Nate McKinnon from Colorado, another surprise team this year. But Nate McKinnon, he's been their best player
Easily.
the last couple of years, except for maybe Matt Duchene, who they
left
just traded to Ottawa. Braden Shen from St. Louis, it's his first year with the Blues since being traded from the Flyers. Tyler Seguin, of course, always a very dangerous player. Eric Stahl from Minnesota,
Played
Blake
very
Wheeler. Alex Pietrangelo from St. Louis, their best defenseman. I think, honestly, one of the most underrated defensemen in the league. PK Subban from Nashville. Connor Hellebuck from Winnipeg, who Winnipeg's honestly one of the more surprising teams this year. I'd put them as the second most surprising team this year. Again, we'll get to that later. But Pekka Rinne also from Nashville making it.
I felt like that was a little bit of a surprise this year.
I could see why. I think when you have Corey Crawford in that division, I find it hard for him to get kind of snubbed from that.
Right.
And then Brandon Dubnyk from Minnesota, he's always been very good, at least in the first half in his career. So I think that Pekka was a little bit of a surprise, but I think he's been playing pretty well as of late, and that might be why he kind of got the nod,
right?
Compared to Corey Crawford, and of course Pierre Laviolette's their head coach,
right,
from Nashville. So that might have also had something to do with it as well. You don't know. And the Pacific Division, I consider this maybe one of the weaker divisions in the NHL. That's just kind of my view, but there are definitely some good players in it.
Easily.
Brock Bozier from Vancouver. I saw this kid play a couple weeks ago when Vancouver came to Pittsburgh. This kid's a rookie, but he's the real deal, folks. He's got one heck of a shot. He's got the speed. He has all the tools in the making to be one of the next stars of this league. This is a kid you do not want to sleep on. I think he won Rookie of the Year 2 out of the first 3 months of the season. So this is definitely a kid who's deserved this spot. And I think this is a kid you got to look forward to the next couple of years.
I agree.
Next, you got Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey from Calgary. He's always one of the better players in that division. That's not a surprise. Anze Kopitar from the Kings, again, one of the better players. Connor McDavid. McDavid's, in my opinion, he's had a kind of a quiet year. He's had a good year.
Good year.
And people just don't notice it because Edmonton's just had such a bad year.
They were one of those surprise teams. I think that was supposed to be better than they are, but
well, they have a losing record right now.
Right.
I believe
it's very shocking.
It's 17-22, I believe, 18-22.
5 games under, I think.
But that's one of the reasons why I think no one's he's gone unnoticed because he hasn't had a bad season by any stretch. He's had a very good
he's been
season.
Carrying the load.
It's just that no one really notices because the team's not doing that well. You know, Cam Talbot for that team has been unspectacular to say the least.
Right.
So James Neal from Vegas, he gets in. Brett Burns from San Jose, Drew Doughty. Those two names, of course, you think, yeah, they definitely get in. I think Jonathan Quick from LA, and this one warms my heart a little bit being a Penguins fan. Marc-Andre Fleury gets the nod from Vegas as a goalie into the All-Star game also. He's had a hell of a year when he's played. That's the thing. He's played. Yes. He's been injured for a lot of the season. So,
but that guy's gonna be the face of the franchise.
For
sure, years to come. Yep.
I think he's got enough. He's 32 now, 30 around that area, 32, 33. Like I give him another 6 years.
6 years. That's what I was thinking.
And the thing is, that is more than enough time for Vegas to kind of load their roster up.
Right.
And even then, they have Malcolm Subban behind him, who has proved to be a very capable goaltender in this league. When Fleury was injured, he did have a little injury problem there a little bit earlier in the season, but he's proved to be a very capable goaltender when Fleury had that injury midway through the first half of the season. So
who would have thought a first-year team like this would be on a roll? It's just
incredible. No one in the world gave him a chance to even do well.
No.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would predict them to do as poorly as the Capitals when they joined the league in the 70s. I think their record was 6-62, which is the worst of any expansion team, at least in the NHL, possibly in all of the major 4 sports. But the fact that they're leading the Pacific Division right now, the playoffs ended today, Vegas would be in the playoffs. Not just in the playoffs. They'd be the number
I
one
was gonna
seeds.
say, the way this team gels, I wouldn't be surprised if they made it all the way this year to the finals.
I don't know because they'd still have to get through some of the teams in the Central Division. I could see them getting through the Pacific guys. I don't see them getting through a team like St. Louis or Chicago in a 7-game series. If it was in like 1 or 2 games, I'd say yes. But in a 7-game series, usually the better team prevails. And I could see a team like St. Louis or Chicago doing it.
That'd be a great series.
A great series would be Vegas and Winnipeg because those are two very unexperienced teams that are very hot right now.
Right.
So those 2 teams, I would say, I could see Vegas pulling an upset there and maybe going all the way if that would be the case. But, we're only halfway through the season. That's the beauty of this. And so that's your all-star rosters. Again, like I said, couple of snubs, couple of surprises, mostly from the Metro Division, I'd say. But all in all, pretty much a lot of names that you expected to be in the rosters. No one like a John Scott from a couple of years ago, where the fans just voted him in. Not really known for his goal scoring abilities, but definitely a warm moment there. So, like I said, we're halfway through the season, which means a lot of writers, especially on ESPN, they are thinking about the awards are being giving out at the end of the season. So if you don't know this, the Art Ross Trophy is the league point getter, which is goals and assists combined. Rocket Richard's the leading goal scorer. And you have other awards, MVP, best goalie, the Vezina. And there's an ESPN article that just came out a couple of days ago where the writer, Greg Wyshynski, he seems to be writing most of the hockey pieces on ESPN nowadays also, but he gave his kind of predictions for each of these awards. And I have to say, I agree with a lot of them. There are a couple of awards I kind of maybe not disagree with, but there definitely is a discussion there. But let's start with the Art Ross Trophy, which is the lead point getter in the NHL. Right now, the leader is Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He has 59 points in 42 games, and I think, honestly, the second place point getter, I believe, is Claude Giroux of the Flyers, but that's 7 points away. Kucherov has just been tearing it up so far this year. I believe he scored in like his first 7 or 8 games of the season. I mean, this guy. He had a good season last year, not anything spectacular, mostly because they didn't make the playoff. But this year he came out with a purpose. I think he runs away with this award. I think there's nothing.
I'd have to agree. I mean, how good Tampa Bay is too.
Oh yeah,
you're playing along with Stamkos and guys like that. It's just you can't beat it.
Going into the season, people knew Tampa Bay was going to be a good team. I don't think anyone expected them to be this good, this dominant.
Yeah.
And I remember I watched. They came to Pittsburgh a couple months ago when I was at that game, and even though the Penguins won pretty handedly, Tampa Bay still looked like a very good team. I'm
pretty sure it was a back-to-back though, right, for Tampa?
It might have been, but the thing that really killed them was they took a lot of penalties.
Right.
And that's what really killed them that game. But other than that, they are a very solid team. This is a team I look out for in the future and in the playoffs this year.
Absolutely.
This is definitely a team that can give a run for the Capitals, for the Penguins, and the other teams in the East and the West.
Kunitz might get his 3rd in a row this year.
He might. I mean, that's very possible because Tampa Bay is such a good team. And then the dark horse he has here is Connor McDavid of the Oilers at 47 points in 43 games, which is that's pretty good. I mean, that's a very good stat. It's just, again, no one really has been paying much attention to McDavid, or at least not as much attention as last year. Last year, he got a lot of attention because Edmonton was so good, and because everyone considered them to be a year ahead. And this year, they've just taken this step back, and that's why he hasn't really gotten as much credential, as much attention as he did last year, at least in my opinion. Rocket Richard, current leaders are Alex Ovechkin and Nikita Kucherov. Both have 27 goals in 42 games. Again, like I said, Kucherov started the year off real hot. Ovechkin started the year off real hot also. And I can see these two really fighting it off against each other for this award. Of course, Crosby won it last year. This is an award that you don't really see Sid win very often. You see him more try to go for the Art Ross because he's more of a playmaker, not a goal scorer, or the Hart Trophy. Watch out for Brock Bozier of the Vancouver Canucks, again, that rookie. He's had a great year so far, 22 goals in 39 games, which is, for a regular player, that's good. But for a rookie, that is amazing. Mm-hmm. And then Austin Matthews is the dark horse of Maple Leafs, 19 goals in 33 games. I can agree with that one also.
Yeah, definitely.
Matthews is his second season. And the Maple Leafs have been doing real well. They're still a relatively young team. But I think, and there's another article that this author wrote where he lists the biggest surprises for the entire season so far, and he said the best free agent signing has been Patrick Marleau to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it brings up a point. The San Jose Sharks, I thought they'd be a lot better than they were this year. Just to see how much that's affected them, the loss of Patrick Marleau makes a huge difference.
Oh yeah, Matt Marleau was a big veteran presence in that locker room. They didn't do very well last year, but I think losing him hurt them even more.
With a weak Pacific Division too, I'm surprised Sharks aren't at the top. Honestly, they're in the middle.
I'm surprised that they're not more near the top.
Yeah.
They do have a very good roster with Brett Burns, Joe Thornton, Martin Jones, and Ned. So that is a very good roster, and the fact that they're not
can turn it around still.
They can.
Yeah.
They make a couple of right moves and they can easily turn around. But for me, the reason why I like the Patrick Marleau signing so much for Toronto was because when you look at Toronto, the vast majority of their roster are very young guys. And they signed two guys this offseason, Ron Hainsey and Patrick Marleau, who are older. They have the experience. They've been there. Ron Hainsey won the Stanley Cup last year with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Patrick Marleau went to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2016 with the San Jose Sharks. And when you look at the previous Stanley Cup winners, you always have a couple of veteran guys. You don't need them to produce much. You don't need them to be scoring, 30 goals a season and putting up 50 assists. You don't need that from them. What you need is a veteran presence in the locker room that can really mentor and help the younger guys, especially with Toronto when they have such a young roster. That's really helped them, I believe. But you look at the previous Stanley Cup winners, you had last 2 years, Matt Cullen in the Penguins locker room. You had Justin Williams when the Kings won their 2 Stanley Cups. You had Bill Guerin when the Penguins won their 2009 Stanley Cup. And then Detroit Red Wings, well, they were all really old, so they were all a veteran presence.
You obviously need guys like that because look at the Penguins.
Oh yeah,
losing Matt Cullen, obviously it's took a toll on them a little bit this year.
Yeah, they're
not where they should be.
They don't have that veteran presence in the locker room. Now people could say, well, Malkin and Sid are older. Yeah, but they don't have that presence in the locker room like a Matt Cullen or Patrick Marleau does.
It's the little things, too. Matt Cullen won a lot of face-offs last couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
And the Wild, they got a huge piece there.
It's sad looking at that. The Wild, I think, aren't really using Cullen to the best of his abilities. No. I think when they signed him, they wanted him to produce a lot, which, the Penguins didn't need him to.
No.
They needed him to really be able to fill a role when they needed him to, which wasn't that much. Yep. And they needed him to really be able to mentor the young guys like Sherry, Rust, Getzel, those guys. So that's the reason why I liked the Patrick Marleau signing. And that's part of the reason why before I did like the Antti Niemi signing from the Penguins when they first signed him. But, of course, he went on to not do so hot in net, so they had to get rid of him. But I liked him because it was a very low-cost signing. The Penguins didn't give too much up to get him. It was only $750,000. And for me, when you lose Fleury, that was like losing a mentor for Murray. So you needed another guy to really be able to take Murray under his wing. And I really like Niemi because he's won a Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks before. He's been there. He's done that. And I felt this is a great opportunity for him to be able to take Murray under his wing and kind of keep pushing to where, kind of just take over where Fleury left off.
Right.
But again, Yami really
Didn't
knew
work
so
out.
well.
Nope.
And then the Penguins had to do something that they probably didn't want to do, which was call up Tristan Jarry. Even though Jarry's been doing very well for the Penguins so far, with a couple of lackluster games, which you expect from a first-year guy. Yeah, I don't think they really wanted him to call. I didn't think they wanted to call him up at all this year.
And you always got to consider the defense too behind the netminder. You
Oh
know?
yeah, the Pens defense has not been doing that well.
Yeah, I mean, no goalie should be criticized by the way they play if they don't have the defense to back them up.
I totally agree. So we'll get into the Hart Trophy, which is the most valuable player. And I think this is the one you could have a discussion on. He has Nathan MacKinnon winning the Hart Trophy, which when you look at it, it is a decent choice. MacKinnon has definitely been the backbone to the resurgence of the Colorado Avalanche. They are in a playoff spot, especially after last year where they were pretty much dead last. He's definitely been a big factor in that. He's been at least their MVP of this year. But I think it's funny because you have the Avalanche last year, who were as bad as they were, and Matt Duchene requested a trade out of there. They finally traded him this year to the Ottawa Senators, who went to the Eastern Conference playoff last year. But as soon as Duchene got to the Senators, the Avalanche get into the playoffs, and all of a sudden the Senators are one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a funny story.
It could be a locker room thing too. You never know.
I think it could. I think Duchene, especially he won it out, and I think he could have also been kind of a poison in that locker room as well, and that could have affected them
easily.
So I think he has finalists. I think this is the guy who should win, which is Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning did not make the playoffs last year, but Kucherov has been probably the biggest part of the reason why they're doing as well as they are this year. I can see MacKinnon winning, but I think this is the guy I agree saying he should be the MVP in Kucherov.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ovechkin, he has Ovechkin as a finalist. I don't know if I really agree with that, just because when you're looking at MVP, you tend to look at a guy who's pretty much carried the team on the back, and as well as Ovechkin's done, he has so many other good pieces around him. You have Braden Holtby, and that you have TJ Oshie as your winger. You have Nicholas Backstrom as your center. You have so many good pieces around you.
Goals to assists too. You gotta compare that.
Oh yeah, and Kucherov does it all.
Yeah.
Ovechkin's kind of a one-dimensional player with goals.
Yes.
Kucherov's two-dimensional. He can score and he can make plays. So that's kind of my undertaking of that. So we go down into the Norris Trophy, which is the top defenseman, and Drew Doughty is the winner in his eyes, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
Drew Doughty's been arguably the best defenseman in the last couple of years. You could maybe make a case for some other guys, Victor Hedman, Carlson from the Senators, but I think Drew Doughty's been the most consistent guy out of all of them.
He's well deserved to be in that role.
So they have finalists in Victor Hedman and Johan Klingberg from the, I hope I'm saying the name right, from the Dallas Stars. But they don't have Erik Karlsson in that race, which I kind of agree with because he hasn't had a very strong season this year as well as the Senators. But I really am surprised with the season Karlsson's had. Especially after a playoff run that he had them on last year, where he was pretty much playing the entire postseason on a broken foot.
Mm-hmm.
You play as well as he did on a broken foot, you think that he's going to be an absolute stud the next year,
right? And
that just has not been the case, unfortunately, for him. One of the nicer guys in the league. All respect to Erik Karlsson, but it's definitely a big surprise he's not in that race. But I think definitely Drew Doughty, he wins the Norris hands down. Selke Trophy, this is the best defensive forward. Pretty much, it's been Patrice Bergeron's award the last, I don't know how many years, pretty much since he's gone in the league, just because he's such a good face-off winner. But they do have Sean Couturier of the Philadelphia Flyers winning this year. I haven't really noticed much from Couturier all this year. I know offensively he has been doing better than he normally does. I think he has 14 goals so far this season, which is a career high for him. But I think you definitely you give him a shot, but I think it's Patrice Bergeron all the way, in my opinion, just because it's been his award for I don't know how many years. I don't know how you can really take that away from him because he hasn't really changed anything. And then finally, Vezina Trophy top goaltender, Andrei Vasilevsky of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I agree with that.
I do.
I think he's along with Kucherov, he's been the reason why the Lightning have been where they are. And we saw him a couple years ago when the Lightning faced the Penguins in the Eastern Conference Finals, and when Ben Bishop got injured, and he kind of stepped in. No one really knew what to expect of him except for maybe Lightning fans, and he played on top of his head that series. I mean, he gave the Lightning a great chance to win that series, which they almost did until the Penguins won Game 6 and 7. But Vasilevsky, I totally agree. He wins the Vezina. Bobrovsky,
That's a surprise.
the defender. Yeah, I haven't heard much from Bobrovsky all this year, and I don't think he's having as great of a year as he did last year. Last year he had a good season.
He did.
Last year, I agree, he deserved the Vezina Trophy last year, but he has not had a great season this year, in my opinion. And then you have Corey Crawford, the Blackhawks, who's had a decent year.
Decent.
He's had. I can agree with that one. One name surprising did not see on this list this year, Carey Price.
That's who I was thinking. I had a couple others in mind too. Well, if Fleury was healthy for the whole year, I think he'd be up there for sure.
Oh yeah.
But
and he might be by the end of the season. You don't know. We still got 40 some games left. So
yeah, but I agree with you. Carey Price should be on there, and I thought Martin Jones for the Sharks might have been a finalist as well. But
I do agree with the leader, but the finalists do surprise me a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But again, we still have 40 games until the end of the season, so we will definitely see how all these awards kind of play out the rest of the year. And then last award, this is the last award, which is the Calder Trophy, which is the top rookie, and Brock Bozier, Vancouver Canucks. There's no
debate there.
There's no debate.
No.
Usually there's a little debate, McDavid,
Eichel
Eichel last year, Matthews, Laine. This year there's no debate.
This kid's unreal.
There's no you cannot debate this. I don't think that there's any rookie playing to the level that he is playing right now. He is playing at a superstar level right now, and no one else. Matthew Barzal from the Islanders, he's been having a good year. Charlie McAvoy had a good season last year and this year, but Bozier's been out of this world.
He's kind of playing a similar role as McDavid right now, though. The record's not showing, but he's playing well.
Oh, he's been playing absolutely fantastic. And yeah, if he keeps winning Rookie of the Month, he's got that award pretty much locked in the bag.
Yes.
So when you look at all these mid-season kind of predictions, you got to look at the teams themselves, because there are definitely some surprises and some disappointments, per se, in most of the divisions. I think the Metropolitan's shaking up to be kind of what you expected, with the exception of New Jersey.
With everybody.
Yeah, the Metropolitan Division is the closest division in hockey right now. There is 11 points that separate the first place and last place team in that division. So that's the tightest division so far. But when you look down the list, I think Toronto's a surprise in the fact that, not that they're doing well, but they're doing as well as they are doing.
Yes.
I think Ottawa's one of the bigger disappointments this season. People are saying Montreal, which I can kind of see, but I think Ottawa's a bigger disappointment when you go from being in the Eastern Conference Finals just a year ago to being, second to last place in the Atlantic, only ahead of Buffalo.
I think one team that's shocking, even though they're kind of at the bottom of the Metropolitan, is Carolina this season. How well they've been playing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you look at what they did last year, they were nowhere close to being even in a playoff race.
But
now you have them. They're right in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Cam Ward's an excellent goaltender, too.
He is, and he's been in the league for I don't know how many years. He won them. He was their starting goaltender when they won the cup in
2006, I think.
2005?
Was it 5 or 6?
I think it was 5.
Okay.
So he's been in the league a long time. He has the experience. But yeah, everyone in the Metropolitan right now is in the middle of the race.
Yeah. No one's left.
When you're looking at it, there's pretty much 3 points that separate the first wild card place in the Rangers to the last place Islanders. 3 points. That's not. That's a win in an overtime loss.
The amount of injuries Columbus has too. Surprised they're still at the top.
Oh
right now.
they've especially it hurts
Been
when you
brutal.
have Brandon Dubinsky out, one of their top players. So the fact that they're doing as well as they are, and that could be one of the reasons why Bobrovsky is in that Vezina
True.
race, but I think it has more to do with kind of like Seth Jones and Foligno. But yeah, Columbus is up there. New Jersey's a surprise, I think. Philadelphia has definitely rebounded from that stretch where they lost 10 straight games. I think they went on like a 7 or 8 game win streak. So the entire Metropolitan kind of is real close. I'd say, but in the Eastern Conference, biggest disappointment is easily, in my opinion, the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah. Going from Eastern Conference final to not even being in a playoff spot.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
Now you look at the West. I think there's so many surprises that we could talk about. Biggest disappointment is by far, I think the biggest disappointment in the entire league is the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, Edmonton's definitely on the list as most surprising. Looking at the other ones, I mean the Central divisions, they've been playing really well. It looks like.
Yeah, they've been one of the better divisions also. I think they're the second best division behind the Metro.
Yeah, and I mean Vancouver to me has been a little bit of a. I thought they'd be a little better this year. Honestly,
I didn't expect much from Vancouver at all this year. I definitely maybe thought they'd be a little bit better, but when you have a team like Edmonton in there, I thought they wouldn't do as well. But then you look at Edmonton, 18, 23, and 3. That is absurd. When you have guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, Cam Talbot in net when he had a great year last year, Cam Talbot looks human.
Yeah.
He doesn't look anything like he did last year. And you have a problem when you have your fourth lead point getter is Milan Lucic.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
An issue.
You have an issue when he's your fourth best point getter. Like you can't go anything around that.
It's just another amazing one. Vegas, 29 wins.
Oh,
already.
they're easily the biggest surprise in the NHL.
Yeah.
You have the biggest
Best
surprise and the biggest disappointment on one division. So, I think that's pretty funny.
I think Vegas fans should be very excited for what they got.
Oh, they should be very excited because when you looked at what they were doing in the expansion draft, you thought that they were kind of stockpiling for the future. You weren't expecting them to do okay this year because they did have good players in James Neal, in Nate Schmidt, in Fleury, in Perron, but you didn't expect them to be like this.
No,
There's no chance you expect them to be like
incredible.
this. And then I think the last surprise from the Western Conference is Winnipeg, especially since they were one of the kind of last place teams last year, and then all of a sudden they're first place in the Central.
Yeah, Winnipeg. That's incredible. And then Chicago in the basement.
I know that they're
And
third worst this year.
yeah, the fact that they got swept last year by Nashville, and I don't know, they're going downhill. I don't know what it is, but
I mean, you definitely
too many veterans, maybe.
That could be the case. Chicago is getting up there in age as well as Pittsburgh. But again, when you look at age, Edmonton's still a very young team, and yet there they are sitting third last. So could age be a factor? I think so. With Edmonton, it could be kind of a lack of experience as well.
Yeah.
But again, biggest surprise in that division is Winnipeg, in my opinion.
I agree.
You can't tell what they did in the offseason made them that great. Pretty much the biggest free agent signing I think they had was Steve Mason. He hasn't really been playing at all for them this year.
I think when you look at Winnipeg and Vegas, just looking at how good their home records are this year.
Oh, they've been amazing at home.
Vegas
only has 2 losses at home. Winnipeg only has 3.
Yeah.
And Winnipeg, I will say this, Winnipeg might take a hit here soon because Mark Scheifele, their lead scorer, pretty much up there with Patrick Laine. He is injured right now, and Scheifele's just been absolutely amazing this year. I mean, he's been lights out for Winnipeg, and losing him will hurt hurt them in the long run. I'm not sure how long he'll be out, but that does definitely hurt them at least a little bit. So we're going to turn away from the NHL just for a little bit, and we're going to talk about the World Junior Championship that happened this past
Boy, was that exciting.
couple weeks. I think, being USA fans, I think the biggest highlight for us was the USA-Canada outdoor game.
Yeah, in Buffalo.
Winning in the shootout. U.S. down, I think, 3-1 at one point and scoring 2 goals late in the third period to tie the game and then winning that game. I will say this, though. Of course, going back, Canada did win the gold medal over Sweden. Sweden beat the U.S. in the semifinal, and U.S. Beat the Czech Republic pretty handily. I think it was like 7-0 or 7-1 in the bronze medal game. So U.S. got a bronze medal. I will say this. I think in the eyes of USA Hockey, maybe the bronze medal was a bit disappointing. I think the biggest disappointment was the fan participation.
Yeah.
Because if you looked at any of those games, there were a lot of empty seats.
There was. And, I mean, Buffalo's right on the border with Canada, so I understand why the Canadian fans
But the thing is, you have the World Junior last year in Toronto and Montreal. I believe the World Junior next year is going to be in Vancouver.
Yeah.
So the Canadian fans have their chance to watch the games.
Right.
They have 2 years and two times out of 3 years. I think this was a year they were deciding between either Buffalo or Pittsburgh to host it. Now, you're telling me that Pittsburgh could not have brought more fans out to watch those games.
I think they could.
I was embarrassed because when you looked at the USA-Russia game, which is usually a good game, a lot of fans want to see that game, the place looked empty.
Yeah.
How do you not get more fans? And I get Buffalo was in the middle of a snowstorm during that, but you got to get more fans out.
Yeah.
And people may say, oh, well, you usually need two arenas for the World Juniors to host. Montreal and Toronto. I think Buffalo used where Canisius plays, kind of Buffalo's practice rink. So where would you host the other games for the World Junior? Well, if you don't want to host where the Penguins practice up in Cranberry, which holds a decent amount of people. I won't say it holds a lot. It holds a lot. You could hold it in Neville Island. You could hold it in Wheeling. You could hold it in Youngstown, or you can make a deal, maybe try to get a couple games up at Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland.
Yep. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was, but you could always look at schedules too. Buffalo had that long road trip.
What?
The Penguins were home a little bit.
Well, when you look at it, they made that road trip because the World Juniors were decided. A couple of years ago. It was like 2-3 years ago. So they built the schedule around that.
Right.
And that's the reason why Buffalo was on such a long road trip at that time. Had Pittsburgh hosted, Pittsburgh would be on that long road trip at that time. So I don't think the scheduling is that much of an issue.
Do you think the outdoor game would have happened in Pittsburgh?
It would have been interesting. I will say that. It'd be interesting because you do know the Roonies are not shy from hosting outdoor games at Heinz Field. Yeah. They're not shy about that. So, But
it was a cool atmosphere though in Buffalo with the snow.
It was cool. I will say that I did like that. But I'm just saying I think that the fan support in Pittsburgh would have been a little bit better. That's just my opinion. But I think
it's hard to tell.
I think USA Russia would have gotten more people. I think USA Canada, I think that was a good show out, but I think they could have maybe been a little bit bigger at Heinz Field.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that USA Hockey will have to look at the next time they get host one of these. Because I'm not really sure how the fan support was when Buffalo hosted it back in the 2000s, but when you look at kind of the attendance for this tournament, do they kind of go with a different city?
Shaky.
So of course, Canada wins the gold medal. I think we were all hoping for USA Canada Part 2 in the gold medal game, because if you look at last year's I believe it was
they matched up really well.
In Toronto, USA won it in a shootout. They won the gold medal in a shootout, which a lot of fans say that's a bad idea. I liked it. I mean, I think there could have been a better way to kind of end the game, but it was an exciting shootout.
Right.
But, you know, the Swedes got in instead. Canada took care of business pretty handedly, and the medal games really didn't pan out all that well because the U.S. really took it to the Czech Republic. That wasn't much of a game at all.
Yeah.
So, switching back to the U.S. for another story that just came out a couple of days ago. Jaromir Jagr, I think the oldest player in the NHL.
He is. Yeah.
There are rumors that he might get waived by the Calgary Flames in his first season with the Flames. He spent the last, I think, 2 or 3 seasons with the Florida Panthers. He's been with Boston, Dallas, Philly, New York,
Almost anyone
Washington.
you can imagine.
He's been with a lot of teams. But he spent most of his years with the Penguins, where he was drafted. Now, in this ESPN article, they are speculating, will he play in the Olympics? Will he maybe sign back with the Penguins, or will he just hang up his skates? Now, anytime Jagr becomes a free agent, or there's a chance that he might get traded, the Penguins are always in discussion.
Yeah.
Everyone's always talking about, oh, well, the Penguins might trade for him, the Penguins might trade for him. And I think it's kind of overblown at this point because I don't believe it at this point anymore just because I've heard it so many times.
Yeah, I don't imagine the Penguins ever getting Jagr again.
And
It's just how much young talent we have now.
and the fact that the system that Sullivan wants to put in place with the Penguins,
wouldn't flow with
it's a very speed-based,
Yeah.
high-paced approach.
He can't keep up.
And I don't think he'd be able to
No.
keep up.
I don't think so.
And, you know, we already have Ryan Reeves, who's kind of slower, and, you know, the system can only support so many kind of slower guys.
Yeah, if this system was happening 5-6 years ago, I'd say absolutely.
I think he would fit under a Bilesma
Right.
or Johnson, but not with the Sullivan. So, and, you know, the last time that there was this much kind of hype about Jagr joining the Penguins, it was when he came back from the Czech League or the KHL a couple years ago, and there were people saying, yeah, he's going to sign with the Penguins, and he signs with the Flyers.
Yeah, that got a lot of people disturbed.
And it was
He joined Max Talbot too, who also.
and it was hilarious because at that point, Pens fans, we were ready to forgive and forget. You know, he said those comments about when he got traded from Pittsburgh, he requested the trade. He was kind of a cancer in the locker room. He told people that he was dying alive in Pittsburgh. So when he came back, he wasn't very well supported from Penguins fans. But when he was coming back from the Czech League, we were all ready to forgive and forget. You know, just sign with us and we'll forget all that and let's just kind of like start a new future starting now. And then he did the worst possible thing and signed with Flyers. Honestly, if he signed with the Capitals, I think people would still hate him, but not as much. If he signed back with the Rangers, people would still hate him, but not as much. If he signed with any other team, no one would
sign
have
with the
cared.
top rival. You're gonna get.
But you
hated.
sign with the interstate arch rival, the team you know everyone in Pittsburgh despises.
Pull to James Harrison.
That's very true. That's very, very true. But you do that, so you expect us to kind of welcome him back? No.
No way.
And then he went to Florida, and everyone... Well, he went to Dallas and Boston, and everyone kind of forgot about him when he went to
It was
Florida.
also Talbot. That was disturbing too.
Oh, I remember. I went back. I went to the game he came back, and I have to say, I was very upset with him. I'm like, you could have signed with any other team, and I would absolutely still love you to death. But he came back, and I think I was one of the only people in the arena to not give him a standing ovation. 'Cause I'm like,
That's surprising.
you signed with the Devils, you signed with the Blue Jackets, you signed with even the Rangers. You know, maybe even the Capitals. I wouldn't care.
Philly's just a different.
But
animal.
you sign with Philly, then we have an
That's
issue
a
there.
no. Yep.
That is a no-no. That is like Ben Roethlisberger signing with like Baltimore or the Ravens or New England.
Right.
So that's a no-no for me.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, once he went to Colorado and at that point, I was okay. All's forgiven.
Yeah,
So
easily.
once you leave the Flyers, then I'm
You're
okay.
fine.
You're fine.
You're
As
fine.
long as you didn't win a cup with them, you're fine. So one last kind of point of discussion to end this program on our top 5 teams in the NHL as of right now. Now, I think the number 1 team, in my opinion, is Tampa Bay. That's, in my opinion, you can't argue with that. They have the best record in the NHL right now, 31-9-3, 65 points. You can't argue it. Second is Winnipeg. They've had a very good year, as I said before. They're 26-11-7. They have 59 points. I think that they're going to be a very dangerous team coming up here soon. Third team is Vegas. They do have more points than Winnipeg, and they have 3 more wins. But I just think that I still have reservations against them. I just, even though it's halfway through the season, they've done as well as they have, I still just don't know.
Something.
Because when you look at an expansion team, you expect them to fail.
Right.
You expect them not to do well the first season, and they're doing to do as well as they're doing. I'm just expecting them to kind of fall off.
This is a great point for the league to look at them and say we can. I mean, Los Angeles. You're 7 points behind. You can still catch up. These teams can still compete. Vegas, the road record, that's not very good. So obviously they're home cookers.
Mm-hmm.
They play well at home, but
they've played, I think, the majority of their games at home also.
and that's another thing. Their second half of the season is going to be on the road.
So
That can very well change.
It can very well change.
Yeah.
They do have 41 games left, and they've played 21 games at home. So you do expect them to play 20. I mean, it's going to be fairly even. They're going to be playing 20 games at home, 21 on the road. But still, I just have a gut feeling that they're going to fall off here soon. But I have to give them credit because they're doing as well as they're doing. They have to be one of the top 5 teams in the league right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Number 4, Washington Capitals, 57 points, 27-13-3. They didn't get off to a strong start.
No.
They did very poorly at the beginning, but they were able to rebound. They've done very well as of late. They are first place in the Metropolitan Division, probably the most competitive and hardest division in the league, at least in my opinion. Now, them being first place, that can change, within a couple of days. Columbus is only 4 points behind them. You got New Jersey, who's only 5 points. Rangers, who are 8. Pittsburgh, who's 10. And then Philly, Carolina, and New York Islanders, who are 11 points behind them. So that can very well change here, in the next couple of weeks. But again, with Washington, you always expect them to do well in the regular season, but you never expect them to do well.
It's like this every year. They win the trophy for the regular season.
They win the President's Trophy every single season, and they can't get past the second round.
Yeah, you can have your 110 points, but if you don't do it in the playoffs, what's the point?
Exactly. So I think really Washington.
It's got to be this year.
They say it every year.
I know.
Every year they say this is our year.
If
This is our year.
If
This
it's
is our
not
year.
this year, I don't know.
I do have an honest question, which is, how much would it take to trade Alex Ovechkin? Which year is it that breaks the camel's back?
I don't know what year it would be.
Because everyone thought it would be this past year. Everyone thought that he was going to be gone this offseason.
Yeah.
This was kind of the hottest. This is the hottest summer for Alex Ovechkin trade rumors.
They could have sat down with him this offseason and said, "This is your last shot."
They very well could have. I mean, they did get rid of some players,
I think
like
if they don't
Nate
win
Schmidt,
this year,
with Justin Williams, but you never know with Washington.
he might be gone after this year if they don't win it.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't get past the second round again.
Or retirement. You never know.
I think he's still a little too young to retire right now. I give him. I think he's in the same boat as Sid and Gino. I think he has 5 to 6 more years. I think he's still in the latter stages of his prime. He's like 31 years old, so he still has another year or 2 in his prime. Crosby has another 2 or 3. So they're in the latter stages of their prime, and then you play usually another 4 or 5 years, depending on how beat up you are from those years. But I give him another 5-6 years before he retires. I don't think he retires anytime soon. And number 5, you know, I wrote down Toronto as my number 5 team. I really wanted them to be number 5, but when you look at it, I gotta give it to Boston. I gotta give Boston number 5, just because they've played only 40 games. They have 53 points. That's the same amount as Toronto. That's the same amount as Columbus, but they've played 4 less games. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we just saw them play the Penguins a couple of days ago on NBC, and except for the first period, they were great.
Boy, they fast on
They
the ice.
played tremendous. I mean,
They were on the back-to-back,
yeah, exactly.
and they were flying.
And they have
Key pieces that that definitely played well. You know, you add Charlie McAvoy in there. You have David Pastrnak. You have Brad Marchand. You have Patrice Bergeron. You have Zdeno Chara. So they have those pieces in there. Again, like I said, I really want Toronto because I do like Toronto. They have a lot of young guys who I can really get behind. But I gotta give it to Boston.
If I had a 5, I would, even though they're not at the top right now, I had to give it to Jersey.
I can see that.
You've played 41 games, which is the least amount in the Metropolitan Division right now. 52 points, sitting in 3rd place. You know, they're a little home cooking too, but I mean, Ray Shero's done a hell of a job there.
Yeah.
Turning that team around. They were nothing last year. And the fact that they're, you know, up top with the big dogs, you know.
My only concern is that they have lost their last 5 games.
Yeah. But before that, I mean, they've done it. I mean, those 5 losses too, like,
Two of them are regulation, 3 are overtime.
yeah, so.
So that'd be my only concern
But
on
the
them.
losses are good though. The least amount of losses.
The thing
in
is,
the division.
they have not played. I think they've only played Pittsburgh maybe once.
I don't know if
They
might have not played them yet.
So they haven't played. They still
think
have.
I
They still
have.
have the majority of their
No.
games against Pittsburgh yet. I think they still have the majority of their games against Washington yet. They still have the majority of their games against. I think they've played the Rangers 2 or 3 times,
just
so they still have a couple more games against them. So they still have a tough schedule ahead.
Right. But the loss column's big though.
Yeah,
You know,
it is.
with Pittsburgh, 19 losses already. You
Oh
look
yeah,
at
that hurts them.
that overtime point's bigger than what most people think.
That is very true. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of this show. We hope you really enjoyed this show. If you liked it, comment below, subscribe to the Diamond Sports Talk Network. If you have any questions for us that you want to get answered next show, type them down below. We'll try to get to them. If you have any topics that you want to for us to discuss, again, write them down below. Send us a message on Twitter. Please, please, please subscribe. We enjoyed your guys' audience. Look forward to the next one. We will be probably one of the big topics we'll be discussing is the Seattle expansion team. That's one of the topics I do want to get to. But until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.